Why does fall have so many holidays and worship place? Why does fall have so many holidays and what does it have to do with the harvest? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods talking about nature outside our front door. You know, you might get the idea that fall is one of my favorite topics to talk about. And yes, this is our third podcast about fall. And I don't think there'll be another one, but we'll see. It's my favorite time of year. Like I said, I love the fall fruits, the fall vegetables, the pumpkins, the apples, the Brussels sprouts, all the tubery things, the things, the root plants that come out. I like all of it. Always look forward to this time of year where me and my friend, we do something that we call every year where we take a fall tour around. And it usually means what we do is we just get in the car. Her husband works on Saturday, so we, of course, go out and we go to apple orchards and places that sell gourds and squashes and pumpkins and corn stalks and, just kind of buy fall. We go to bookstores and note card places. And it's just one of our favorite fall things to do. There's just something about it that everything tastes better in the fall. The crops are so good. Hot cocoa is so good in the fall. Apple cider. But why is it that, we sort of get that idea that nature saves its best flavors for fall right before cold sets in? And so we're going to talk a little bit about the science of that and the history and why autumn or fall is such an important time of year for a lot of reasons. You think about it, there are a ton of harvest holidays, no matter which faith you're in, and it's special. It's special to almost every kind of people, and the more closely tied you are to the land, the more special it is. But also, like I said, it gives us that warm sense. People talk about it as being the pumpkin spice time of year, and I went out and got the pumpkin spice phone, but the idea is that it always means something to us for sure. The crisp nights are wonderful. I'm thinking about having a bonfire night out in my backyard. I just enjoy it. The last time I did it, I had owls, eastern screech owls, fly through the yard back and forth. But here's the thing. There is science involved in it too, that when starches are inside the plant, they start to convert to sugars. We talked about that with the leaves, right? Why some leaves turn red, it prevents cell damage because of that conversion to sugar. That's why maples are red. And that antifreeze helps the plant survive. And that's primarily, too, why everything tastes a little bit better. The carrots taste a little bit better. The squashes taste a little bit better after we start getting those cool nights. So these cool crops that we have, they are photosensitive. They respond to the length of day. It's called photoperiod sensitive. They grow their leaves during the long summertime. They only set buds out and then put energy into the roots once they start shortening the days, late summer and fall. And that's the thing that they're waiting for, that cue. And it also, they don't plan it this way, but it means that it also gives us the best flavor in some of our harvests that we have. From a nutritional standpoint, it's no coincidence either. Vegetables that are rich in vitamin C and other types of nutrients, fall season has that boost to sort of give us, I think, someone called it nature's winter survival kit. So when we start getting those cold nights, that's when the plants really start kicking in. And there are a lot of fruits that go through summer, but these fall latecomers are just amazing. Think about apples, pears. Those are the classic symbols of autumn, at least in the United States. Those chilly nights help ripen the fruit. The temperature drop triggers enzymes that develop their color, deepen their flavor. Like I said, encourage the nutrients inside the fruit themselves. And that's why September apples taste different than apples that you might get in August or get into the summer. Cranberries ripen late in the bog. I live in an area that has cranberry bogs. And those two guys who were from Ocean Spray and they would stand in the cranberry bog? That's like right by here. You can go tour those cranberry bogs, but they turn that beautiful red. The grapes for wine start reaching their peak sugar and acidity in the fall. Winemakers watch for this time, and they're very careful. We have a winery not too far from here, and they are experts at knowing at what is that exact right moment to go harvest the fruit so they can make the best wines, and they do make pretty good wine. And so these late ripening fruits have purpose. Migrating birds, late foragers, animals that are bulking up and getting ready for winter eat fruit. Spreads the seeds out right before dormancy sets in. So you eat an apple and maybe you get a bunch of apple seeds in you. Don't eat apple seeds, they're not good for you. But animals, they have different kinds of stomachs. But think about all those things that eat the berries. A couple weeks ago when my friend and I went out at that warbler fallout, they were all eating berries off of every plant they could find. So there's seeds inside the berries. The birds eat them. The fruit drops, the animals eat those, and some of the birds too. And then they poop out all the seeds all along the way. And then, boom, it gets super cold and all the seeds are dormant. That's nature's way of ensuring that everything shuts down for the season and those seeds are ready to spring into action as soon as it starts getting warm again. And humans, of course, we have built all our traditions around these harvests. Pumpkin squash, corn, staples in North America. Cabbage and becomes sauerkraut in Europe. And kimchi in Korea. They ferment it in such a way that it stretches out the life of the vegetable so it can make it throughout winter. We all have different methods of preserving food, whether it's meat, vegetables, fruits. In this neck of the woods, people would have what they called fruit cellars. And they would put the fruit in fruit cellars, and that would act almost like a refrigerator before there was refrigerators that would allow them to keep the fruit for even longer. And then you think about these festivals that go along with it. There's the festivals with mooncakes. Europeans had harvest festivals like Oktoberfest, and they would malt the grain and the hops, making it possible for that crop to reach maturity in the fall. And even if you think about Halloween, that also has cultural implications that reach all the way back to when turnips, pumpkins, all those kinds of things are there and available for harvest season. So we are built, even as a human species, around it. And so you think about it, that winter's a scary time. I mean, it's not so much for us. We have refrigerators, we have grocery stores, we can have international shipping, which gets us food from all over the place. And you might not realize this, but even when I was a kid, you couldn't even get watermelon unless it was in the middle of summer. So I would tell my Mom, could you get us a watermelon? She goes, well, it's not going to be around, until midsummer. We didn't even have watermelons. Now we have every fruit on the planet in our grocery stores all year long because we get it for all over the world. But it wasn't so long ago you got what got harvested. That's what was in stores. So it becomes easy for us because we have all these things. But think back when you didn't have these things. You had to survive the winter. I just got done reading Little House on the Prairie all over again, and how much preparation went into surviving winters. Now, Little House on the Prairie, the big woods, is not terribly far from where I live. So, Little House in the big woods. I went there. It's now a wayside along the highway. I saw the land. It is incredibly hilly. No wonder he wanted to move to Kansas after the big woods. But the area is beautiful, but it gets devastatingly cold there. They had to plan very carefully when living in the big woods, which is near Pepin, Wisconsin, when they crossed over to Walnut Grove, Minnesota, and I think they even went further to the Dakotas at some point. We don't have food all year long that grows, and so you have to prepare. You might lose your cattle in harsh, cold winters. So our psyche is that we're having this harvest season. We're thanking God for it, but we're also celebrating this idea that we're going to store up and get ready for winter. One of the stories that occurred in Little House in the Big Woods about how they went and tapped the maple trees. So we do have maple trees up here, and you can tap them and get maple syrup out of them. And what they ended up doing at that time was storing up the maple syrup, high-calorie food that'll last you for winter, tastes delicious. You can turn them into candies and give them out to the kids. It was fun for everyone, but people came together in fall harvest times to tap the trees and get all of the maple sugar out that they can, and then store that as well. So our celebrations are all around that. And you might have towns too that celebrate not just like on a religious level, but a local fall festival that celebrates basically whatever it is you grow in your neck of the woods and celebrate the harvest of that. Brussels sprouts became popular in old times, but it then became popular again in the 1990s. And that was because Dutch plant breeders were able to reduce the bitterness of it. And so that's why people like Brussels sprouts even better. But that was always a big fall festival food. The idea that we have these harvest celebrations, again, we're looking to pick those things at exactly the right time. One of the fun things about it, like I said, I mentioned that there's a thing called pumpkin spice, which is a big craze, of course, right? Everyone's into pumpkin spice. I thought all along, for a long time, that pumpkin spice was making things taste like pumpkin. And so I wasn't all that interested in it. I was like, coffee that tastes like pumpkin? That sounds kind of weird. And instead, what we find out is that pumpkin spice is cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, different types of spices. I think of more of it like apple pie spice. But one of the interesting parts of it is that some of these spices have antimicrobial properties, which also help preserve the food and keep it from spoiling. And like I said, many of these harvest festivals also has to do with the harvest moon, which looks extra big and sometimes a little bit orange because the atmosphere is scattering the rays along the horizon. Just like we get red sunsets, it can scatter the moon's rays too. And so that kind of harvest moon came about because it helped farmers, giving them extra light to keep working in the fields even later. Busy time of year is harvest time, and that's why it's important. I remember there were a lot of kids who grew up in farms in my high school, and they would get off of school for harvest time. I mean, it's hard to imagine now, and I don't know that it still happens the way that it did, but basically kids would just leave school, and we would just keep going on, and then we would help them catch up when they got back to school, but they had to be there for their parents' harvest. So between us trying to survive, the plants trying to survive, the plants trying to live for another day, harvest time is a big deal, and fall is a big deal. So make sure you get out there and enjoy the fall harvest. Get some apples, get some other vegetables and squashes, try some new squash recipes out. And just remember that this time of year is about the plants surviving, it's about us surviving, and it's really worth celebration. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Appreciate you watching, listening. This is fun to do, especially, like I said, on YouTube, where I get to show videos and pictures of all the various things that we talk about each week. If you have any comments for me, if you have any topics, like I always wish I understood something, let me know. I would love to talk about it. And if you have a local harvest festival in your neck of the woods, you let me know what that is. Thanks so much. Have a great day.